You keep reaching for them in the dark. Not always with your hands, sometimes with your thoughts. With the message you rewrite 3 times and still send. With the silence you break because it feels heavier than your pride. With the hope that if you just say it better, softer, calmer, less needy, less emotional, less you, maybe this time they'll stay. Maybe this time they'll turn around. Maybe this time they'll finally understand that your love is not a trap. It is a home. But every time you chase an avoidant, something strange happens. The more you move toward them, the further away they seem to drift. The more honest you become, the colder they sound. The more available you are, the more unavailable they become. And eventually, you stop asking the obvious question, why are they pulling away? And start asking the more dangerous one, what is wrong with me? That is where the real damage begins. Not in their distance, in your interpretation of it. In the way their detachment turns into your self-doubt. In the way their silence becomes evidence against your worth. In the way you start shrinking your needs, managing your emotions, rehearsing your words, trying to become easier to love for someone whose entire nervous system is wired to retreat from emotional closeness. And this is the brutal truth no one tells you clearly enough. Chasing an avoidant does not prove your love. It only teaches them that you will abandon yourself before they ever have to face themselves. Read that again in your bones. Because that is the hidden transaction. While you think you are fighting for the connection, what you are often doing is protecting them from the consequences of their emotional absence. You over-explain so they don't have to reflect. You pursue so they don't have to choose. You forgive too quickly so they don't have to feel the loss. You stay emotionally naked while they stay psychologically armored. And slowly, without realizing it, you build a relationship where one person feels everything and the other person controls everything by feeling less. That imbalance is not love. It is a nervous system trap. Avoidant people are not cold because they feel nothing. That's the part most people get wrong. They often feel too much, too fast, too chaotically. Closeness can activate pressure inside them, not peace. Intimacy can feel like expectation. Need can feel like danger. Your emotions, even when reasonable, can land in their body like a demand they don't know how to metabolize. So their system does what it learned to do a long time ago. It creates distance. Not because you are too much, because closeness wakes up too much in them. Their amygdala, the part of the brain that scans for threat, does not always distinguish between real danger and emotional intensity. A hard conversation, a vulnerable moment, a request for reassurance, these things can hit their nervous system like an alarm. Cortisol rises, their body tightens, their mind starts looking for escape routes. They may call it needing space, needing clarity, feeling confused, feeling pressure, losing feelings. But underneath all those words is often the same mechanism: overwhelm. And when you chase them in that state, you do not soothe their fear. You confirm it. Because pursuit, even loving pursuit, feels like more intensity, more pressure, more expectation, more emotional weight. So they withdraw further. Then you panic harder. Then they numb more. Then you reach more. Then they disappear deeper. And just like that, the relationship stops being about love and starts becoming a loop between your anxiety and their avoidance. A loop can feel like destiny when you are inside it. It is not destiny. It is chemistry mixed with old wounds. That is why chasing feels so addictive. Your brain is not just in love. It is locked into intermittent reinforcement. One warm message gives you dopamine. One soft glance gives you hope. One vulnerable night makes you believe the wall is finally coming down. Then they vanish again, and your system crashes. And because the reward is unpredictable, you become even more attached. You check your phone more. You replay every interaction. You obsess over timing, tone, meaning. You become a detective of crumbs. This is how self-abandonment starts masquerading as devotion. You call it patience. You call it understanding. You call it fighting for the relationship. But if you're honest, what you're really fighting is the terror that if you stop reaching, they will prove what your deepest wound has always feared. That you were never enough to be chosen without effort. That is why this hurts so much. Because it is never just about them. It touches the old place. The place that learned love could be inconsistent. The place that learned attention had to be earned. The place that learned if someone pulled away, the answer was not to pause and assess, but to perform, pursue, adapt, and try harder. So when the avoidant goes distant, your body does not experience it as a simple incompatibility. It experiences it as an emergency. And emergencies make you abandon strategy. They make you text when you should observe, explain when you should listen, beg when you should breathe, collapse when you should become still. Stillness is the concept no one wants to hear when they are afraid of losing someone. But stillness is exactly where the power begins to return. Not the performative stillness, where you pretend not to care while secretly watching every story they post. Not the manipulative silence designed to trigger them. Not emotional withholding dressed up as self-respect. Real stillness is different. Real stillness is when you stop interrupting the natural consequences of their behavior. Real stillness is when you stop managing the connection for both people. Real stillness is when your nervous system says, if you need to go, go. I will not chase you into your own confusion. That changes everything. Because when you stop chasing, the whole pattern is exposed. Before, your energy was filling the gap. Your messages were keeping the bond alive. Your emotional labor was carrying the intimacy. Your willingness to revisit, repair, pursue, and reopen was covering the fact that they were not actually meeting you. But when you go still, when you stop feeding the dynamic with your desperation, they are finally left alone with the echo. And the echo is loud. That is often when the avoidant starts to feel what they could not feel while running. Not because you played a game, because the noise stopped. Because your pursuit was no longer buffering them from loss. Because distance is easy when someone is still standing there emotionally, waiting with the door open. True distance begins when they realize you are no longer standing in the doorway. Then something shifts inside them. The space they asked for starts to feel different. At first, it feels like relief. More room, less pressure, more control. Their cortisol drops. Their mind settles. They tell themselves this is what they needed. But then the nervous system comes down enough for attachment to surface again. The warmth they muted begins to creep back in. the memory of your voice, your patience, your presence, the way you understood what they never explained well. And without your energy constantly reaching for them, they can finally feel the absence of it. This is the part people misunderstand. They didn't always stop caring. Sometimes they stopped regulating. Sometimes they got flooded and called it disinterest. Sometimes they felt attachment and translated it as pressure. Sometimes they needed distance not because you meant nothing, but because you were starting to mean too much, in a body that equates dependency with danger. That does not excuse the harm, but it explains the confusion. And when you understand that, you stop taking every withdrawal as a verdict on your value. You begin to see it for what it often is, someone at war with intimacy, trying to reduce internal pressure by reducing contact. Now imagine the scene that used to define you. They pull back. Hours pass, then a day, then two. Your chest tightens, your mind races. You pick up your phone, you type, "Did I do something wrong?" Then, "I just don't understand why you go cold." Then maybe the softer version, "I'm here if you want to talk." It sounds harmless, loving even, but beneath it is a deeper message. I feel unsafe, so I will move toward the person making me feel unsafe and ask them to soothe the wound they keep reopening. That rarely ends well. Now imagine a different scene. They pull back. You feel the same surge, the same ache, the same urge to fix it. But this time, you don't move immediately. You sit inside the discomfort long enough to hear what it is really saying. Not chase them. Save yourself. Not prove your worth. Protect your peace. Not force clarity. Watch behavior. So you do nothing impulsive. You do not punish. You do not beg. You do not perform detachment. You return to yourself. You let the silence reveal the truth of the connection. If they come back, you observe who comes back. Do they return with presence or just access? With accountability or appetite? With clarity or convenience? That is the moment the power dynamic starts to flip. Because chasing tells them, consciously or unconsciously, that they can disconnect and still be emotionally held. But non-reactivity tells them something else. It tells them your energy is not permanently available at the price of your dignity. It tells them your absence is possible. It tells them you are not an extension of their comfort. You are a person with limits, with gravity, with a life that does not stop because they got scared. And that is when many avoidants begin to lean back in. Not always with healthy language, not always with sudden transformation. Sometimes it shows up as a random check-in, a late night thinking of you, a casual question that is not casual at all. Sometimes they watch more, like more, hover more. Sometimes they remember things they once acted too detached to notice. Sometimes they become restless in the silence they asked for. Why? Because uncertainty that they once created is now being felt by them. And uncertainty is only comfortable when they control it. When they no longer know where they stand with you, when your warmth is no longer guaranteed on demand, when your attention is no longer chasing their withdrawal, their attachment system can suddenly wake up in a way it didn't while you were over-functioning. The dopamine changes. The predictability is gone. The emotional safety net disappears. And now they are the one wondering. Are you still there? Do you still care? Did they lose access? Did they miscalculate your threshold? Did your silence mean peace? or departure. This is where many people make the mistake. They feel the shift, they see the avoidant reappear, and immediately they overgive again. They answer too fast, open too wide, soothe too quickly, and hand back all the leverage their stillness created. They interpret re-engagement as change, when sometimes it is only discomfort. They think being missed means being valued properly. It doesn't. Not yet. Being missed is not the same as being met. And if you don't understand that, you will walk right back into the same loop with a different soundtrack. More chemistry, more hope. Same wound. So if they come back, do not just ask whether they want you. Ask whether they can hold you. Can they stay present when things get emotionally real? Can they communicate without vanishing? Can they tolerate your needs without treating them like intrusions? Can they repair after distance, or do they just restart as if nothing happened? Can they face themselves, or do they only return when they feel you slipping away? These questions matter because the pattern always punishes the person who mistakes longing for capacity. Some people will chase you only when you stop chasing them. That is not love. That is activated attachment. And if you mistake their activation for devotion, you will keep calling temporary intensity a connection. You will keep reopening your heart to someone who only reaches when absence finally makes them feel. But relationships cannot survive on delayed realization. They require consistent emotional courage. Not just the fear of losing access. There is also a warning here, and you need to hear it before your old instincts romanticize the cycle. If your stillness is only a strategy to get them back, you are still trapped. If every moment of self-control is secretly a bargain, see, I stopped chasing, now please chase me, you are still organizing your worth around their reaction. And the body knows the difference. Forced detachment still keeps them at the center. Real self-worth moves them out of the center entirely. That is the deeper transformation. Not learning how to make an avoidant miss you. Learning why you were willing to disappear inside yourself just to keep them close. That question changes lives. Because once you see your own pattern clearly, the obsession begins to break. You stop calling emotional unavailability mysterious. You stop confusing inconsistency with depth. You stop worshiping the almost. You stop treating your pain like proof that the bond is special. Sometimes pain is not a sign to hold on. Sometimes pain is the signal that your nervous system is reliving something unfinished and calling it love because it feels familiar. Familiar is seductive. But familiar is not always safe. And safe is not always boring. Sometimes safe is the first thing that feels strange because your body has been trained on chaos. So let this be the moment you stop measuring love by how hard you have to work to keep it alive. Let this be the moment you understand that people who want true intimacy may still have wounds, may still have fear, may still need patience, but they do not require you to bleed just to remain in the room. They do not make you earn basic reciprocity with extraordinary emotional labor. They do not ask for all of your softness while offering only fragments of their presence. And most of all, they do not become more valuable because they are harder to reach. That is scarcity talking. That is trauma talking. That is the starving part of you, mistaking relief for love. You were not built to survive on crumbs and call it a feast. You were not built to become smaller so someone else could feel less threatened by your heart. You were not built to monitor every word, suppress every need, and perform impossible calm just to avoid being abandoned by someone already halfway out the door. No, you were built for more than that. For steadiness, for reciprocity, for a love that does not punish vulnerability, for a connection where your nervous system can finally unclench, for a life where your peace is not constantly negotiated around someone else's inability to stay. And here is the identity shift that changes everything. The moment you stop chasing an avoidant is often the moment you stop abandoning yourself. That is the real victory. Not getting the text, not watching them come back confused, not hearing that they miss you, not proving you were unforgettable. The real victory is becoming someone who no longer needs to be chosen by the emotionally unavailable in order to feel chosen by themselves. Someone who can feel longing without obeying it. Someone who can feel pain without making it a compass. Someone who can witness withdrawal and say, "This hurts, but it does not define me." Someone who can let silence be information instead of an invitation to self-betrayal. Someone who no longer begs for what should be given freely. That version of you is dangerous in the best possible way, because they cannot be controlled by mixed signals. They cannot be manipulated by distance. They cannot be hooked by temporary warmth. They do not fall in love with potential while starving in reality. They do not confuse intensity with intimacy. They choose themselves first. And when you become that person, something quiet but irreversible happens. You stop chasing. Your body softens. Your vision clears. The fantasy cracks. And in the space where obsession used to live, self-respect begins to breathe. Maybe they come back. Maybe they don't. For once, that is no longer the most important thing, because now the person returning home is you.